Hey everyone, it's Glitchy here. So today we're going to be covering a pretty unique case in the industry, and something I've mentioned by name multiple times on this channel at this point, which is Marathon, Bungie's brand new release for the first time since Destiny 2 launched in 2017. And I feel old as shit saying that. I was literally just getting into high school when D2 came out, but that's not what we're talking about today. Today, we're going to be tackling Marathon, an extremely controversial release, as this game has been through the fucking ringer since what felt like its original announcement. Where even I thought it was going to be a huge return to form for Bungie being an arena shooter with a very in-depth story, but eventually the news came out that Marathon was going to be an extraction shooter, and quite frankly, at that point, I was extremely disappointed. The idea that Bungie was being forced to chase trends and release something they had absolutely no connections to scared me as a fan, and especially since they were fumbling with Destiny 2 on an almost constant basis at that time, the situation regarding Marathon would only get worse around the release of their expansion for Destiny being Edge of Fate, where there would be a huge issue since the closed alpha would become unrestricted and all the people that played it would expose that the game was in a horrendous place. Dull AI, dull graphics, weak gunplay, as well as an overall lack of real direction for the game. And this was before there was a huge discovery of plagiarized art from a Twitter artist known as Anti-Real, where all of their art was directly ripped and applied to assets inside of the Marathon closed alpha, and this would lead to the huge delay where Marathon would undergo a huge update, becoming much more complex as well as finding a very dedicated fan base before it had even released. And there were closed playtests happening on a constant basis behind the scenes where small leaks would come out that the game was looking real promising. Then we finally got a Vidoc completely revealing the new Marathon we had heard so much about, as well as an announcement that we'd be getting an open server slam before the game came out. At the time of writing this script and recording, that was actually last week, and the game is finally out now. So, I think we can finally get into this in an optimistic Marathon review. So after so much time, Marathon has finally released, and I can finally say, I personally believe Marathon is really damn good. I have been very critical in the past of Bungie as well as of Marathon, but I could never be happier to say that the game is a lot of damn fun. That isn't saying the game doesn't have issues, but I believe the positives outweigh the negatives tenfold, and please stick with me to let me explain why. I really want to start out with the aesthetics of Marathon, which have been a huge issue for some people, but personally, I have absolutely fallen in love with it as I've been exploring all the different areas of Tau City, and Marathon heavily leans into that corporate simplistic look because of all the different factions and companies you work for in the story of Marathon. And this isn't saying that I personally like how that is in real life, but the way Marathon does it is in a way that makes sense for the story. When you see all the different buildings in Marathon, they all stand out in a horrendous way in this otherwise beautiful and natural world. It just shows the corruption that these companies have. They don't just extend to the people, as well as planets like Earth and Mars. They're spreading out to the stars, like an infectious disease, taking in as much as they can so that they can make as much cash as possible so they can report to their shareholders how much more money they can make. It parallels what's kind of going on in our current age right now. And also, a side note, it's really funny when a corporation makes something extremely anti-corporate, but this is also a world where the human race has conquered death as a concept, where the runner shells you inhabit are literally just shells that anyone can have their brains put into. Initially, these were going to be separate characters, but it makes a lot more sense now since these shells are literally just us as the players. And artistically, I feel it represents the corporations forcing us into these generic shells that lack any identity because there are just so many of us. We aren't worth diversifying to these companies. Hell, in the story, we are trapped on Tau Ceti until we pay off some contract where they will take money out of our accounts as we work for them whenever they feel they need to. And the actual worlds, as well as the inside of these facilities, would make you think that they're extremely clean, but you'd be wrong. The way that the world looks as a whole inside these facilities is very dirty, especially when you find a bunch of bodies or get into team fights. There's the blue blood from the runner shells, as well as the oils from the robots that belong to the UESC. This isn't even getting into the overgrowth that has taken over portions of the colony, since basically all of the settlers besides the UESC have died. Buildings that have just been overrun with these tick monster aliens, as well as just basic care not being looked into, since the military is much more concerned with just dealing with the runners who are trying to invade the planet and just steal everything. I also haven't gotten into talking about the aesthetics of the different factions, which are joined with these awesome cinematics, which just leak with abundant quality. I shit you not, every single time I watched one of these introductions for the different factions, I could not take my eyes off the screen, and I was absolutely obsessed with how all of them look. My personal favorite is Arachne, a death cult that has become interested in runner shells and asks you to go attack more players so they can learn more about the process of death for people who can't die. And another favorite of mine is Traxxas, who brings a very brutal, no-holds-barred attitude to the situation you find yourself in on Tau Ceti, basically saying, bring me my shit, I'll give you shit in the shop for more money. And I really want to move on to the actual game, besides how the world feels as well as the art. So let me talk about the different maps in full, as well as the general gameplay. So Perimeter is the first map that you have access to, and you'll actually be introduced to it in the tutorial of Marathon, where it teaches you the very basics of gameplay using the smart heal system, which I really like, because it's literally just you press a button, the game figures out what you need in the moment, and it just lets you run with it. And the rest of the tutorial is basically just showing you how to identify loot, as well as just shooting things. And this map is full of a lot more facilities that the settlers on Tau Ceti use more than the UESC. Lots of different testing facilities, as well as communication relays, and it's a perfect starter map. There are a lot of areas where huge team fights can happen, and really tight spaces inside of the relays. And one of my personal favorite spaces is this giant vehicle called the Hauler that has crashed through a wall that cuts Perimeter in half. It makes for a really good POI, and really tight quarters area that makes for extremely intense team fights. But for the most part, Perimeter is meant for beginners to get their upgrade resources for their factions, as well as getting a nice footing in the game. A lot of the teams here, unless you're in a lobby with aggressive teams, aren't going to be looking for fights and are only going to engage here if there's something right in front of them trying to fight them. I really like how the map flows together as well, and offers a lot of different options for getting around. Like, even though there's a giant wall in the middle with tight quarters and will basically force you into fights with other teams, you don't have to go through that small area. You can actually go through this giant chunk of wall that has been torn down. So instead, it'll be partially safer, but that means that you're going to be out in the open and able to just have hellfire rain down on you. But now we can go on to talking about Dire Marsh, which is my favorite map in the game, and I feel like there's a level of people that just want to annihilate every single person in the lobby that queues into this area. Dire Marsh is full of a lot more UESC facilities, but is still mixed with some more like general population settlements that have more of a purpose of testing things on the planet, as well as providing supplies to the rest of the people in the colony. Like Greenhouse, which seems to be one of the main places that grew food in the colony, as well as the giant shipping center, which I find is the most frequent place people like to rush to get into fights here. I also really like Algae Ponds, which is in the direct middle of the map and is another hot spot for fights. A lot of this map is much more open compared to a lot of the spots on Perimeter, which makes for much more unique gameplay as a whole, since instead of being trapped in corners, you're more likely than not going to have to close the distance or fight from afar in team fights. This map in the looter's space is much more compromised of mid-tier upgrades for all of your different factions, and I personally have been using Dire Marsh as a way to complete Arachne quests, since there's a lot of team fighting happening, so that just means red faction funny number go up. Plus, it really helps that this is the only area so far where you can find one of the main items for the upgrades on Arachne. Now we can cover the most recent map, which just came out, I think, yesterday as of recording this audio, which is Outpost. Outpost as a map is basically a ginormous UESC base. Everything is extremely close quarters, and once you get inside, the map forces you to go inside because of a unique weather condition where the sky starts raining fire for a while, and there is no way to avoid it besides going indoors. Now, I haven't played it enough to give a lot more thoughts on it, but this is definitely the map most psychopaths are going to play, including myself, so that they can just absolutely rip through people that just want more loot I do not see Outpost as a map that you go to specifically just to get loot, besides like the huge puzzle room encounter that they have in this map. You go here because you need to enact murderous tendencies on other people, and I personally have only seen people load into Outposts with sponsored loadouts, which I haven't even talked about yet because they're basically the Arc Raiders free loadouts. I have no problem with the game having a map like this, and if anything, it's probably good, so then the other maps that contain a lot more of the items that people need for faction upgrades are less populated with these psychopaths, so beginners can have a lot more fun. And I absolutely love how this map looks in general, and I am looking forward to queuing this map a lot more so I can get my Arachne quests done a lot quicker. But now I want to move into the different systems of Marathon and how they actually feel. Gunplay and runner shells in Marathon are the main way you're going to be interacting with the world besides looting. What can I say besides they feel good? Now, like with every other shooter, there are definitely some guns that are better than others, but for the most part, all the guns feel really good to use and fill their niches, which I'm sure every single player is going to find to be their favorite. It's almost like how every Pokemon is somebody's favorite, but in this game, you will find a weapon that feels like it was made for you and you alone, which Bungie has never had a problem with. I mean, these are the same people that designed the Halo Sniper and the Halo CE shotgun. I think they know how to make some badass fucking guns. And my personal favorite in Marathon is the WSTR Combat Shotgun, which is currently one of the most nasty guns in the game in its base form. If you get really close to any player for the most part, unless they have a really high tier shield, they damn near get one tapped. Even if you shoot them at center mass, they're just going to be on the fucking floor instantly. I also love the twin tap HPR, which feels a lot like the original Halo battle rifle, which is funny because it's more likely based on some of the pulse rifle code from Destiny 2 than it is anything from Halo, but that's only half of the player experience. As a runner, the other half is obviously the runner shell, which you choose before the match actually starts, and every single runner shell gives you a completely different way of playing with a team or makes solos completely different, including one specific solo shell that we'll cover in detail later. Starting with Destroyer, it has a much more aggressive playstyle, having a riot shield ability as well as tac sprint from like the recent COD games, also having like a dash, like think about Advanced Warfare, maybe even Black Ops 3. Destroyer is all about being a really fast tank, helping your teammates basically be a stalwart, especially with the ult being a literal rocket barrage that fires as you're shooting with your regular weapons. Then going on to Assassin, probably going to be much more popular in solo queue since it allows you to go completely invisible while out in the open, deploy smoke while diving in, and in that smoke you'll also be invisible. Even the ult just deploys a giant smoke cloud that can cover an entire surrounding area of an extraction point. And going on, Recon, my personal main, is really simple to use, having a little seeker spider grenade that chooses when it wants to be efficient or not, unfortunately, as well as a ping ultimate that basically sends out a pulse and marks hostiles in a radius of Recon. Then going on to the medic being Triage, basically just a character that throws little drones to heal people that will eventually run out, but you can recharge it by throwing more drones at people. Even having an ultimate that will instantly revive people off of the ground, and having a little base ability that also improves, I think it's the damage and the like EMP factor of your weapons. This shell is really like a clutch player kind of scenario. I've been playing it a lot with my friends, and it really does make things better just because it's free heals for the most part, as well as being able to get those moments where you can revive your friends and come back from a team fight. Another shell is Thief, which is one of the more unique shells in the game because they actually primarily focus on movement abilities as well as looting. Thief has a grapple hook that feels straight out of D2 with Strand. I'm sure that it's probably coded the exact same way, since you don't even need anything to hook onto, while also having abilities that can let you see enemies through walls as well as seeing loot containers and the rarity of things that they have inside them. Thief's ult is a drone that can steal items directly out of players' inventories as well as attacking them, and there's already been some funny clips where people have put claymores on the drone and just have flown at enemies, and also using the drone to grapple onto it if there's two thieves in a party, just to fly across the map. But moving on, Vandal is the last normal shell we'll be talking about, since this is just a full-blown movement character, making it so you can slide a lot further using double jump, and the ult just makes you a lot faster. It makes it to where your heat or your stamina system doesn't increase as much. Unique part of this shell is that there is an arm cannon you can use that just blasts enemies away. It's literally just a little Mega Man blaster to have some fun with. And getting through all of these means that we can finally get to the free loadout system in this game. Which, yeah, there are sponsored loadouts that are free, and in all technical means, this is the exact parallel to something like the free loadouts in Arc Raiders. But the last shell in Marathon is the best way to do free loadouts in a game, in my opinion. Rook is an absolutely legendary way to experience Marathon in general. Rook has very bare bones abilities, one of them being a camo ability that disguises you as UESC, so they won't attack you and you can blend in with them and attack players. His ult is literally just a healing ult in case you get desperate in some kind of team fight, but this shell also is kind of crazy because you can only load into any map by yourself, and he's supposed to play like a vulture, looting all the corpses, because even though you're loading in by yourself, you're loading in against 3-player teams in the middle of an already going game. The potential of insane plays on Rook alone makes this so much better of a system than just choosing the sponsor kits, since you can risk literally nothing, and you can upgrade your Rook through the capstone upgrades of each faction, making it to where potentially Rook will become 10 times better than the sponsored kit, spawning in with actual weapons, shield and patch kits, as well as backpacks to maximize profitability. This is literally the greatest free gambling system of all time. It's really funny that this system is this good in Marathon because it originally wasn't going to be in the game when it was slated to come out last year in September. So thank fuck for the delay if that was the difference between Rook being in the game and never being made at all. At this time, this is all I really have to say about the good things about Marathon, because this is a live service game, so things and systems are going to change over time, and this is easily the best launch Bungie has had since the Halo days, where people who like the game are actually the majority, and the systems of the game are good enough to actually support a player base, hopefully. And we haven't gotten any specific numbers besides what we can see from sites like SteamDB, but I hope that everything is doing good, and I'm currently working on a video about the current state of Bungie, which now I need to update to accommodate for Marathon, since I didn't expect to like it this much. But now I want to talk about what I don't like in Marathon, which I don't have a huge list, but what I don't like feels pretty large, and I don't know how it wasn't fixed because of the delay. My largest negatives in Marathon right now is the UI and the trend of monetization with Bungie games as of recent. The UI in this game is so overbearing compared to their largest competitor right now, which is Arc Raiders. The Codex by itself, which has all of the challenges as well as lore, is so ugly and annoying to move through that I will find myself lost inside the menu just trying to find the things that I'm able to redeem, just to get nothing or something very small. I am guessing that it's going to get a huge overhaul at some point because I think Bungie is well aware of the issues people have with it. But my other issue is something that I had with Arc Raiders as well, and since this is a company I have been a fan of for quite some time, I know just how bad Bungie can get with microtransactions in a game like Marathon. And I can already smell the bullshit Sony and Bungie have cooking for this game. One thing I can give Arc Raiders is that their Battle Pass system is free, since their game is fucking $40. Now Marathon has the exact same price tag, and the first Battle Pass is already paid. Another way that Arc balances their non-paid Battle Pass is that the currency to unlock the stuff in the pass is very limited, and you need to do special quests to get the currency, so it makes the player engage with the game more. In Marathon, the currency is limited, but the Battle Pass costs money, and the fucking rewards suck ass. The last skin in the Battle Pass isn't that great, and all of the skins that they released in the shop just feel like very basic recolors that would get you killed quicker than just using the base skins in the queue. And it doesn't really make any sense to charge for skins in this game when they could have cosmetics that are tied to the items in game, like another extraction shooter. It only makes sense to have skins like they have here in a game like Ark, because that's the only place you can fucking see them, since it's in third person. This game doesn't have any third person features at all. There isn't a fashion game like there is in Destiny, and there's no social space or weapons that allow you to be in third person. So why the fuck are there skins in the game? Now, I'm sure most are going to blame Sony for this as well, but I refuse to believe that this also wasn't an issue with the people at Bungie who helped the execs make these dumb fucking decisions. I don't know. I'm just not a fan of monetization at all nowadays. So maybe I'm just an old man screaming at clouds, but it really just seems egregious in this game. These are my issues with the game, and I'm sure the UI will get better eventually. The monetization, probably not. But overall, I actually really like the game. It feels really good, and I can easily see myself queuing this game a shit ton. Plus, they confirmed they're going to do actual mandatory resets like Tarkov, so there's going to be a lot of replayability when new seasons come around. But with how controversial this game was before it came out, and how divisive the game is right now, I was sure it meant instant failure for Marathon, and probably the end of Bungie, if we're being honest. I'm happy to be proven wrong so far, and I hope the game does nothing but get better. So please let me know what you think down below in the comments, as well as leaving a like, and maybe, if you'd be so kind, please hit the subscribe button, as it really does help out the channel. So I'll see you guys next time, where it should be a video on Resident Evil Requiem. See you when I see you. This is Glitchy, signing out.